Nate Oates has done it again, right? He's scheduled a crazy non-conference schedule. Obviously, we go on the road and are able to take down St. John's on Saturday, and you turn around here on Thursday, and Alabama has Purdue, which is the number 2 team in the country, coming into Coleman Coliseum. The AP poll came out earlier today, and Purdue is officially number 2. Alabama is number 8. No matter what is a top 10 matchup, no matter what you want to look at it. And this is 2 of the best teams in the country. And this is going to be a phenomenal game. This is obviously the return home from the home and home stretch that NATO scheduled with Matt Painter. And last season, it saw Purdue taking a win in this game by a score of 87-77. I think there's a lot you can actually learn from that game in Purdue. With the way college basketball works, a lot of teams are very different year to year. Purdue is not one of those. Matt Painter has done a phenomenal job where the majority of his teams has been guys that he built in the program, and he does not have a ton of transfers. A lot of his guys are freshmen and sophomores, juniors and seniors that he builds up through his program. There is one transfer that is starting that Alabama actually has faced before in Oscar Clough that's going to be the starting center. So there is some things that you can draw from that, but I will say that Matt Painter, because of how he does that, I think there's a lot you can draw from this game last season. One thing I will note here up at the top, because I'm sure it's going to be thrown in the comments. I'm going to record this under the notion that Trey Kaufman-Wren will play in this game. From what I have read and what I've tried to do research, it seems that he's had a shoulder injury and that he's been a game time decision the last 2 games. I'm going to assume he plays in this Alabama game. So, some of the things I talk about will not be as important if Trey Kaufman-Wren does not play in this game. I just want to, I'm recording this on Monday evening. I want to assume that Trey Kaufman-Wren is playing because similarly on Alabama side, I would also assume that Keaton Bristow, if at all possible, is going to give it a go. When you have a big game like this, it's really, if you can be out there, you try to be. And I fully suspect that Trey Kaufman-Wren is going to try to be out there for his team on Thursday. If he doesn't play, then obviously I think that definitely skews things in Alabama's favor a little bit more. But we're going to talk about this as if he is going to play in this game. So, first things first, when we look at the game last season, I've got the stats here pulled up. Of course, on Alabama's side, a decent number of these guys are not here. Mark Sears, Grant Nelson, Cliff Amore, Jaron Stevenson that started that game. None of those 4 guys currently are on the roster. Some other guys that played pretty big minutes with Darion and Muhammad Diabate. Neither one of those guys are on the roster. But you did have some other guys that played in the game and had pretty significant impacts. Latrell Wrightsell went 3 for 6 from 3 in this game last season. LeBaron Fallon, this was part of his coming out party. He had 18 points in this game, shot 3 of 4 from 3, which for LeBaron last season was phenomenal. Additionally, had 4 offensive rebounds and 4 assists, right? So this was a huge game for LeBaron on a big national stage, obviously at Purdue. Aiden Holloway played in this game. He did not shoot particularly well. This was not one of his best games, but overall, you do have some guys that have some experience against Purdue. However, when you look at the Purdue side of this game, a lot of guys had a ton of experience in that game. Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, Trey Kaufman-Wren, all played in this game last season. Jakari Harris played in this game last season. Miles Coleman, CJ Cox, all these guys that are going to be playing this season played in that game last season as well. And so I think, again, when you look at the guys who have made substantial movement and who have played a lot of time for Purdue this season. They got a ton of playing time in that game last season. So that means a couple of things. One, it means that they have familiarity playing against Alabama's system. And that's something that some teams struggle with when it's your first time playing Nate Oates and playing that system with how fast that we play. Your first time playing them sometimes can be a bit of a culture shock. So the fact that Purdue has that, that is a little bit of a positive for them. But additionally, it means that Alabama is going to have some familiarity to what those guys were able to be successful with last season, right? So again, we look at the game last season, and I don't want to harp too much on it because at the end of the day, this is a new season. We do have different players, but I think it gives us a little bit of a good starting point. So I just wanted to start there. Braden Smith had 17 points. He had 10 assists, right? The assists were really the big, more important thing that he had in that game with the double double. Braden Smith did not shoot particularly well in the game. He went 0 of 4 from 3, 6 of 14 from 2. It was not his best game shooting. I say that to say Braden Smith is a better player than that, right? Like he is a better shooter than that. I would suspect that he's going to have a better shooting night this game, but obviously with an assist number like that, it's going to be something that Alabama's backcourt's going to have to, stay attached to him and be prepared to, know that he is going to get everybody involved and really have a very successful game. Then you got Fletcher Lawyer, Alabama's going to have to chase him around the whole time. He's kind of their 3-point marksman. He doesn't do as much from inside the arc, but he went 3 of 5 last game from behind the arc. Really good shooter, really good player. He is somebody that I fully suspect we get like a Latrell Wrightsell kind of chasing him around. I think we'll kind of pass him off and we'll do as best we can to try to keep the ball out of his hands. But when he does get the ball, just stay attached to him because he is somebody that can definitely make you pay from deep. He's somebody that I think that Alabama will try to obviously stay attached to as much as possible. And then if you look at the game last season, the guy who really did the most damage to us was Trey Kaufman. And again, I know we talked about here up at the top that at the end of the day, he may not play in this game because he was injured in the first 2 games of the Purdue season. However, I just think he's the type of player that if he can give it a go, he's going to. Last season, he has 26 points, 8 rebounds. Just was elite when he got to his jump hook with his right arm over his left shoulder, right? That was where he had the most success. I think that's the reason why when you look at this and the fact that they have a different center, Trey Kaufman plays the 4, and then you have a center in Oscar Clough that is also another really good paint presence. I think that's where I think the front court is the most important thing, obviously, for Alabama in this game. That's not a crazy thing for me to say. It's the reason why it kind of scared me, but I thought that St. John's was a good game for us to kind of get prepared for this. And I didn't know that Taylor Bowen was going to show what he showed in that St. John's game. But what Taylor Bowen showed me in that St. John's game is he's going to have the ability to match up against a guy like Trey Kaufman. Is it going to be perfect for 40 minutes? No. I think he's obviously going to need some help, and Alabama's going to have to do different things against Trey Kaufman, but I do think that Taylor Bowen has the skill set and has the ability to go up against him. Additionally, I think this is where if you get a guy like Keaton Bristow back, he potentially is also going to be able to help. I think that a guy like Keaton Bristow definitely has the physicality to match up with a Trey Kaufman. And again, I think that those are some of the guys who you're going to want matched up against Kaufman because he's just so successful. Additionally, if Alabama throws a bigger body at him, you could see Aiden Sherrill matched up against him. I think Noah Williamson and Collins are just terrible matchups. I think Trey Kaufman would have a field day with them. So I really do think that from a standpoint of who Alabama wants to have matched up, it's going to be an Aiden Sherrill, a Taylor Bowen, a Keaton Bristow, potentially a Davion Hannah, less so, but maybe. Um, you know, those are more of the guys who I would suspect that Alabama is going to be throwing at him. If you were to ask me right now who I think Alabama puts on him. Additionally, a guy who definitely made us pay before we kind of get into this season, last season was CJ Cox. He was a freshman. He hit 3 huge threes near the end of that game. He was 3 for 3 from 3. And he had a very big game. He's somebody that has started for Purdue here this season. Obviously, they've played a little bit different of a lineup than what you would generally suspect with CJ Cox and Jake Benter. They went a little smaller without Trey Kaufman, where they've gone more of like a 2 guard, 2 wing lineup where their biggest guy outside of Oscar Clough was 6'6". I fully suspect they're going to go a little bigger and play with Kaufman, but we'll be curious to see how this game ends up working out. One last guy that we talked about, Oscar Clough, that we did play last season. We'll just kind of talk about what he did. Obviously, he was at a completely different place last season at South Dakota State. However, when Alabama played him last season at South Dakota State, he had 21 points with 9 of 18 from 2. And then the big thing is he had 15 rebounds with 7 offensive, right? He was a guy that was just an elite offensive rebounder. And that's something he's continued to be this season. He had 6 offensive rebounds in one game and 5 in the other this season. He continues to be, last season, he was the number 5 offensive rebounder in the entire country, number 1 in defensive. And this season, to start out the season, he's number 15 in offensive rebound rate, right? So he's a guy that's just an elite offensive rebounder, has done a really, really good job his entire career, both at Washington State and at South Dakota State. I don't suspect that's going to be any different with Purdue. So again, just like the St. John's game, keeping them off the glass and rebounding at all positions, right? That's Taylor Bowen, that's Aiden Sherrill, that's Amari Allen. That's all of our guards really rebounding as a team and doing what we did against St. John's is going to be another key in this game because I think that Purdue, especially with Clough and Kaufman Wren, are going to give you a little bit more rebounding than they potentially have been in years past, right? In years past, Purdue definitely you wouldn't consider some elite rebounding team, but I think that Purdue is giving you more of that this season. Additionally, something that Purdue has done a really, really good job of is not force or not having turnovers, right? Granted, they've played Evansville and Oakland, so they haven't played great defensive teams to this point. Purdue has not turned over the ball a lot, and because of that, they're the number one offense in the country as of this moment. They do it at a much slower style than Alabama, so this is really going to be a contrasting game of styles. I think that this is going to play a little bit more in Alabama's favor just because of who Alabama has. And honestly, I think that a guy like Amari Allen being such a good rebounder really helps Alabama's pace of play this season because he can get the ball and not have to pass it out to an outlet. He can get the ball and run. I fully suspect that Alabama tries to run as much as they can in this game, get the pace up as much as possible. Purdue was able to slow down the pace a good bit last season. It was only 68 possessions last year. I would fully suspect we get this into the 72 to 74 possession range. I think that Alabama is going to try to run and get this pace up and moving as much as possible. Of course, part of that on Alabama's side will be not turning over the ball ourselves and potentially causing some Purdue turnovers. I think that you're going to need some big games out of a guy like Latrell Wrightsell with his perimeter defense, and others I think are also going to help you in this game. Do I think that Alabama can do it? Absolutely. But again, Purdue is an elite team for a reason, and I think that they're going to cause you certain problems with what they do. Additionally, the thing that Purdue is kind of the best at on offense is they assist on, as of this moment, 73% of their made baskets, right? Alabama is another team that assists on a ton of made baskets. Obviously, we were able to have a lot of success against St. John's without the assist numbers, which is something that I haven't seen quite as much at times. But Alabama did a really good job in that game. But Purdue is, again, 73% of their made baskets have been coming off of assists. Big picture, what does that mean? You have to stay attached to your man, right? You cannot allow to get lost in the pick and roll. You cannot allow a guy like Fletcher Lawyer to lose you as he come around different screens or ghost screens or whatever it is they're doing. You really have to stay attached to your man because Purdue does a great job at finding the open man and great job hitting the shot once they do that. They additionally take a lot of threes, so I do suspect this is going to be a game that Alabama and Purdue are both going to be taking a good number of threes. Purdue, I'm sure, will try to run us off the line a little bit and try to funnel us to a Clough and Trey Kaufman rim. But I do think that Alabama seems to be a little bit more future proof in that standpoint of doing a lot better job at making sure to get their threes off. I fully suspected Patino was going to run us off the line, and he wasn't able to do so. Alabama got to the paint a ton because they did try to run us off the line a bit, but Alabama still took 34 attempts. And I think that that is going to continue throughout this season. I think that we have enough shooters that Alabama is going to be able to get to that 25 to 35 attempt number kind of all season. So I would suspect that that kind of continues in this game. The keys for me for Alabama in this one is number one, if Oscar Clough or Trey Kaufman Wren are getting the ball on the block, you have to keep them off of their spot, whether that means doubling down with a potential guard. I know that Alabama is not going to want to do that because that's going to leave a guy like CJ Cox open or Fletcher Lawyer, Braden Smith. And again, those great shooters that we talked about. So potentially Alabama is going to try to do as best they can one on one and not double down. So what that really means is you need an elite game out of your front court. There's no other way to say it. You need a big game out of your front court, and because of that, it's going to put a lot of strain if those guys are not able to be successful. Again, Taylor Bowen, Keaton Bristow, and um, Aiden Sherrill are going to be huge in this game. I fully suspect that Collins and Noah both get playing time. I think this game, if it slows down, is going to honestly be an okay matchup for Noah, especially against a guy like Oscar Clough. I think he's a terrible matchup for Trey Kaufman Rim, but I think against Oscar Clough, he could be okay. But again, I think this is going to be a very tough game for some of our backups. I think really this is going to be a game where the fours potentially are going to get a little bit extra run, and you're going to maybe even see Alabama play some small ball five with with Taylor Bowen or Keaton Bristow, similar to what you saw in that St. John's game. Additionally, I think that you can do some more of that with Amari Allen at 6'8". I think that he can slide to the four and really let you go with a pretty heavy guard lineup that really can, pass, dribble, and shoot at all five positions and really stress out a team in a lot of different ways. So it would not surprise me if we saw something like that. Obviously, the big thing in this game is staying attached to shooters, right? There's no other way to say it. I think that Alabama, on the offensive side of the ball, I think Alabama's going to be able to have a lot of success. I think that Purdue, to what they are on defense, I do not think they are bad on defense by any stretch of the imagination. Purdue, statistically, is the 43rd defense in the country. Alabama, for reference, is 39, right? So they're right around what Alabama looks like today from a defensive perspective. Purdue, as I mentioned, is number one in offense. But what I do think that the big thing that you have to note is I think that Alabama does something different than what most other teams do. And I think that Alabama is uniquely set up to do it this season. I think the additional guards that we have, the guys like Amari Allen and Davion Hannah that you brought in that can be more of guard wing and be much bigger, more physical bodies, I think are a very big deal in this game. Additionally, I think playing in front of your home crowd in what's going to be a hugely highly ramped matchup, I think is a very big deal as well. The fact that you have such a big matchup coming to Coleman Coliseum in November after a big win against St. John's, right, really catapults kind of your start of your season. Alabama has this Purdue game, and then if they're able to win it, you go into that Illinois games with all the confidence in the entire world. I think that the team's going to be hyped up and ready to go. I think that the fans are going to be hyped up and ready to go. And I think that the 10-point loss last season in Indiana to Purdue is going to be a major driving factor of this game. I know I said that a lot of people in that game were not there, but a couple of the more important guys on the team were, and that's your backcourt. Latrell Wrightsell, LeBaron Philon, and Aiden Holloway all participated in this game last season. And those three guys had a huge game against St. John's. They're gonna additionally need to have a big game in this one because they're going up against Braden Smith and Fletcher Loyer, two of the better guard duos in the entire country. However, I think that they're up for the challenge, and I think that when you compare that to what Alabama, you know, likes to do on offense, what they should be able to do on defense, again, I if you asked me to pick this game prior to Taylor Bull Bowen showing me what he showed me in that St. John's game, I really was very, very concerned about this Purdue game. However, considering what Taylor Bull Bowen was able to do that game, additionally thinking that Keaton Bristow will be back in this game in front of the home crowd, I do think that Alabama wins this game. This is a game that I think will be another just absolute classic matchup. I think that Alabama and Purdue match up very well with each other. I think similar to St. John's, it's going to be a very back and forth, heavyweight matchup the entire game. I'm going to put my prediction. I know Ken Palm has it at 86-85 Alabama. I think it's going to be potentially a little bit higher scoring because of what I saw out of Alabama. Again, I think that they're going to be able to get a little bit more. I'm going to go 89 to I'm gonna go 89-84 Alabama. Like I said, I do think that this is a very good game. Like I said, I do think that the possessions get up to the 72 to 74 range. And so I think that's why I have the score getting up a tad bit higher. I think this is going to be a very good game. And again, something to watch in this matchup is if you hear that Trey Kaufman-Wren is not playing, I think that that greatly impacts Purdue in this game, obviously because of what they like to do. I think that Purdue gives us some certain challenges, and you need huge games out of our front court if Trey Kaufman-Wren does not play. However, if you go to a lineup like they've been starting and you only really have one big out there in Oscar Clough, and Alabama is able to throw Taylor Bobo and Aiden Sherrill and Keaton Bristow all at just one guy. And as long as they keep a fresh body on him, that's who they're going up against, not including Noah Williamson and others. I think that Alabama will have a lot of success in this game. So in my mind, I think that Trey Kaufman-Wren playing this game makes this a much closer game, of course. I think that that definitely gives Purdue the ability to win. But if you hear that Trey Kaufman-Wren is not going to give it a go, I definitely would say that Alabama should be very, very, very confident in this game. Like I said, I'm still going to pick Alabama to win this one. And like I said, coming into this, I did not suspect I was going to think I was going to pick Alabama. And that was because I was very concerned about the front court and what we were going to do with a guy like TKR. But what they showed me against Zuby and what Taylor Bowen was able to show me in a very physical game against St. John's on Saturday gave me a lot of hope for what I think this Purdue game could be. So I am very excited. Of course, I will be there. I'm going to actually shoot some video during this game. May do a little bit of a vlog going out to this game. So if you're interested, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be putting out some content related to that. As I mentioned, I will also be doing a review we're going to do a live stream kind of talking about the game after it. So if you're interested in that, go and subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you want to hear me talk about in that one. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I really do appreciate all the support. We have a very busy basketball schedule coming up ahead. And thank you so much. And I will see you in the next episode. Peace.